See the little stick figure?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So these four quadrants
Mm-hmm.
tell what's going on with the client. And then down the center into the cup
Mm-hmm.
is the present moment.
Right.
And the cup is called the gold mine. So I teach people how to discover the gold mine within themselves.
My dear viewers, welcome to another episode of our interview series where I bring you real stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies for personal growth and mental wellness. Today, I have the honor of sitting down with Linda Hamilton, a certified substance abuse counselor, a strategic intervention coach, and anger management specialist. Linda is not only the CEO and managing director of Beyond Addiction, a private rehabilitation center based in Asheville, North Carolina, but she also brings us over years of experience in the field of mental health and substance abuse treatment. At Beyond Addiction, Linda and her team are transforming lives through their holistic approach to recovery. The focus? They focus not only on substance abuse treatment, but also on empowering individuals to regain control over their mental health. Linda's specialty lies in mindfulness, self compassion, and acceptance based psychotherapy, including the powerful acceptance commitment therapy or ACT model, a method that helps people live more fulfilling, value driven lives despite their challenges. In today's interview, Linda will be sharing her experiences working with individuals struggling with addiction, her passion for helping people cultivate self compassion and acceptance, and how her approach impacted individuals, couples, families, and larger groups. My dear viewers, whether you are looking for inspiration, support, or deeper understanding of mental health and substance abuse recovery, this conversation promises to deliver valuable insight. So, without further ado, let's proceed with this insightful conversation. How are you? I'm RICHIEDON Barandino, an online motivational content creator. If it's your first time here, I welcome you to my channel. Okay. And to start with, maybe you can share a bit about of yourself, your background, and what led you to becoming a counselor specializing in personal development, stress management, anxiety, and mental well-being.
Okay, so my name is Linda Hamilton, and I'm in Asheville, North Carolina. And well, that started probably how everything started was many, many, many years ago, um, upon getting sober. And how that happened, I was on a bar stool. I'm going to tell you the actual story. And I was fairly drunk. This is 40 years ago. And I heard a voice in my chest. And the voice said, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here with total urgency. And so my head turned and spoke to the man I was married to. And out of my mouth, it said, I got to get out of here. And he said, I'm not going. The stool swiveled, my feet hit the floor. I pulled the drape of the bar. I walked out, very, very intoxicated. And I never went back. It was over. It was just like that. Right. So uh, that there, that experience encouraged me to think about other people that I knew in that bar who couldn't get out. All right. Who couldn't get sober. And so that began my journey. Right. Anyway, so things were quite difficult in the beginning, right? In the beginning. So I went to work at a detox to help people come off of alcohol or drugs. That was the beginning stages, like I say, 40 years ago, right? And then things began to change. I had a lot of synchronicity in my life.
Yeah.
Uh, from there, I was led to go and live on the island of Kauai. This is a little elongated. Uh, and everything began to happen there. I finished college. By that time, I'm 65 years old. And I finished
Oh,
college and I get my degree to work in substance abuse and psychology, right? So that's where it all began there on the island of Kauai.
right. That's awesome.
Yes. Yes. And so along with that came the moment where I decided I would take RMT. I think it's RMT. Uh, Tony Robbins back then was giving a training in coaching,
Mhm.
right? This
Right.
is way back. So I took it. I took the class. And that's how I became a coach.
Mm,
That's how I got into personal development. Anyway, from there, um, I'm trying to just kind of shorten the story. I
mhm.
took many, many classes. I studied with Milton H. Erickson's students, Dr. Stephen Gilligan, Jeff Zeig, Dr. Michael Yapko, um, oh, and of course, Ernie Rossi.
Mhm.
And why would I say that, right? Because at this point, his wife, Catherine Rossi, is co-authoring a book with me, which,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. So that's exciting. Um,
Right.
yeah, so that's kind of how I got going like this.
Okay. So now, counseling can be demanding, right? How do you manage your own stress and maintain a healthy work-life balance while supporting others?
Well, I can tell you, I live in the present moment. I don't live in the past or the future, so I'm only seeing you now. And when this session is over, it's over. So I don't have any worry. I don't do fear. I don't do any of the negative things like judgment, uh, anger, guilt, shame. I don't do those things, right? I
Mhm.
used to. I used to do them, but I don't do them anymore. So that keeps me stress free.
Okay.
And when I'm with a client, just like I'm with you right now, I'm in the present moment. I don't bring the past into the moment, and I don't bring the future into the moment. I am right here, right now, in this
Present
moment. And
time.
there's yes, 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 yes. And there's certain things that happen, in the present moment. There's no time at all in the present moment. It's totally empty of time. So there isn't like I've been doing this for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. There's no such thing as time. It's free. It's free time, right?
Right.
Uh, because of that, I'm able to be with the client because I have nothing in my mind. I'm not thinking about, oh, what am I going to cook for dinner? Or I wonder what I don't do that. My mind is empty and
Yes.
I'm able to hear and discover what their need is. What is their need, right? And then see if we can't supply that need in the session.
Right.
Would would you like an example?
Sure.
Sure, okay. So a man came in to see me who had a problem smoking cigarettes, and he wanted to get married. And his wife said, or his girlfriend said, "No, I won't marry you as long as you smoke cigarettes." So he came in to me and he said, "What am I going to do?" And so I said, "Well, what is your one need? What is the one thing you need?" And he said, "Oh, I need to stop." And I said, "Okay, go ahead." And he said, "What?" I said, "Go ahead, do it, stop." He never smoked again. And I got pictures of the wedding and the tuxedo and the fancy white dress and all of that. So in that moment, his need was supplied. His need was to stop. And the reason, which is really very important that it stopped, is because there was no resistance to it.
Right.
So he did for maybe 20 years. I want to smoke. I don't want to smoke. I need a cigarette. I don't want a cigarette. So he couldn't make a decision.
Mhm.
But in this session, there was only one thing, not two, one, which was stop. And so he stopped. So that's an example of
Right.
what happens for a client when they come to see me.
Mhm. So, what personal experiences or insight have shaped your approach to counseling and coaching?
I use acceptance and commitment therapy. Uh, I have studied with Dr. Stephen Hayes, Dr. Kelly Wilson, Dr. Dennis Tersch. I like to study with the top people. And so I've also studied with Dr. Paul Gilbert from the UK on compassion focus therapy. So these are the trainings behind me. I've studied with Kristen Neff and Chris Germer on self-compassion.
Mhm.
So when you take and you put all those things in my cup,
Right.
right, you get a
Under-
magnificent counselor because I have a lot of training. Plus, I'm here. I'm here, right?
Right.
I'm present.
Right.
Uh, and
Your
that's, go ahead.
your resources plus your experiences combined.
Plus, being here in the present moment.
Right.
I live in the present moment.
Mhm.
I teach people to come into the present moment, to get out of their head, right? So a
Right.
person who does worry or guilt or fear, they're in their head.
Right.
So I teach them to use their five senses. Come out of your head. Uh, and the more they can learn to stay out of their head, the healthier they get mentally, physically, emotionally. Their relationships get better by getting out of their head and living in the present moment. But that means, you have to release the past because the present moment has no past.
Right.
And you have to let go of the future because it doesn't exist. So all you have is the present moment.
Right. Understand.
And so I bring all those resources, all those miraculous experiences I've had for 40 years, and along with the ability to be here,
Mhm.
to be in the here and now with an individual, that's probably the miracle of all things. Mhm.
Right. Yeah. As a counselor, what do you consider to be the most challenging aspect of your work, and how do you navigate these challenges?
Well, I don't find anything challenging. I just, to be present, to stay
Mhm.
present in the moment, right? To do that, I have certain things on my walls at work
Mhm.
to remind me to stay present, to stay here, right here, right? And
Right.
that's helpful because otherwise, I mean, people come in and they cry, they come in and they're angry, and
Mhm.
all of this, right? And
Mhm.
I have to be present and hold the space for
Mhm.
them to go through whatever they're going through. And I have to be non-judgmental,
Right.
right? So if you could imagine, this has taken, well, many years of training my mind to be here, to be present, to open to the person, to be curious. What's the answer? What do they need? Right?
Right. Right. Now, what can client expect from their initial session with you, and how do you ensure they feel comfortable and supported from the start?
Well, I create a safe space for them to be in the room, right? Where they feel comfortable and at ease. I have silly little toys and uh I have a little thing like this,
Uh-huh.
right? So I have things that make them feel comfortable, but I'm comfortable.
Mhm.
So they are present with me, right? And I ask, what is it that you need? What do you want? Why are you here?
Right.
And then they will explain it to me. They will tell me. And then I say, okay. Uh, and usually, depending on the client, I will put up the what is called the matrix, and it's by acceptance and commitment therapy, which I told you about earlier. I use the matrix on a whiteboard, and that does gives 6 things. First, it shows me what is the most important value that they have, what gets in the way of living the value,
Mm-hmm.
how does it affect them physically, emotionally, socially, right? And what actions are they taking that sustains the problem, right? That's the first thing. And most people, when they see that on the board, they know immediately. They're like, oh, I get that. I understand that,
Mm-hmm.
because it's them on the board. I draw a little stick figure, and make that be them
Uh-huh.
so that they know, right? And I know this is going to be silly, but I'm just going to show it to you. This is
Sure.
an example. Let me get it over here. See the little stick figure?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So these 4 quadrants
Mm-hmm.
tell what's going on with the client. And then down the center into the cup
Mm-hmm.
is the present moment.
Right.
And the cup is called the gold mind. So I teach people how to discover the gold mind within themselves.
Could you describe your philosophy when it comes to helping individual navigate stress, anxiety, and depression?
Well,
Oh,
it's not so much a philosophy as a reality. I share the space with the individual, right? I share that
right.
space with them, and I let them give me their anxiety, give me their stress.
Mhm.
And because I'm the same as them, I'm not different than anybody that comes in my room, right? I
Right.
help them dissolve it like salt in water
Mhm.
so that they can dissolve the stress. And usually what happens is they'll go, oh, I feel so much better. That's the first thing they do after we do a session. They feel relieved,
Mhm.
right, of the anxiety and the stress. And I believe that I am one with that client. I'm not separate from the client, but we're together,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that makes it helpful. Mhm.
Right. So, describe how do you typically begin working with someone who is struggling with stress or anxiety? What does the initial conversation look like?
Well, again, I would ask them, I'm going to turn my chair because I'm in the sun. I would ask them exactly, why are you here? That's number one. I need to know.
Right.
Uh, I can't depend on the administrative part of my business to tell me. I need it right from their mouth,
Right.
right?
Right.
So then they will tell me, well, I have a lot of stress. I'm upset. My wife or my husband is such and such, or I have my recent client has cancer.
Mhm.
Uh, and they begin to tell me their story. So, Richie Don, I know it's a story.
Mhm.
I know it's not real. It's a story. They're telling me a fairy story. And so I can either be the Wicked Witch of the West, or I could be the sparkling witch that says, okay, we're going to heal the story now. And that's sort of how I begin, right?
Right.
Um, with the individual, I ask them, what do you want? Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what you want.
Mhm.
And then I can help them get it. Pretty much in the first session, I can help them discover how to have what they want, right? But mostly it's learning to live in the present moment, to
Right.
let the stress go, right? I
Right.
mean, here's an example. This would be stress, right?
Right.
Now, you could tell me, what do I have to do to let go?
Open your hand.
I cannot. I cannot open my hand. Now, what do I have to do?
You have to, because it's quite tightened, so you have to loose.
See, you're doing it now. You're doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
You
How
have
can you open? What's the first thing you got to do to open your hand?
you should have to release the force itself,
Yeah.
right?
So I have to relax,
Ah, yes.
right? And
Right,
then I can open my hand,
right,
right?
right.
So that's part of it is getting the client to show me what they're holding on to
Mm-hmm.
and then get them to relax, and then they can begin to open to the what they see, hear, taste, touch, smell, their five senses, right?
Understand,
So
understand.
that's what I'm trying to do. And I teach them, are you here? Is this how you live your life or are you here? And everybody wants to live here.
Mm,
They want to be open, right?
right,
Right. So that's a practice here or here, here or here. So when they leave the office, they have a hand metaphor. It's a metaphor
mhm,
of how am I feeling? What is my attitude? Am I here or there?
right,
And that's a moment of choice. You see, they get to choose then. Oh, if I'm here, oh, let me open, right? But first they have to relax. You can't open till you relax.
right, right.
You
I
know,
got it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I believe that actually answers your few of strategies or technique that you find particularly effective in helping people manage and overcome stress, anxiety, or depression by relaxing themselves, right? Any
Uh-huh.
other techniques or strategies aside from being open?
Yeah. Let's say a person is worried. The lady that I went to see this morning, the emergency, she was worried her son is in the hospital. It looks like he's in a coma. She's very scared, right? So, this is what I call bear repair. I brought a little teddy bear and
Mhm,
I told her to hold the bear. And the bear is her son who's in the hospital in a coma,
mhm,
right? And I want you to hold him like that and just send him love from your heart to his heart.
mhm,
And she did it. She did it. And she said, oh, I feel so much better. And so I call that bear repair. And what that does, Richie Don, is it opens the heart. It opens the heart.
mhm,
And love is able to come out, to flow, right? And I've used this in hospitals with people who look like they were dying, right? And they got well. And you could see it right away that something different was happening,
mhm.
even in their skin. So I call that bear repair. That's one thing that I help people use.
Can you discuss the role of client motivation and commitment in the success of your methods, and how do you help clients stay engaged in the process?
I capture their attention and I hold it. I keep their attention focused on what we're doing so they can't wander around.
Right.
And it feels good to have your attention being focused. Most people don't know how to focus the attention. So that's one of the things that I do right away is I grab their attention and I focus it on what it is they want, right? So they can have what they want. You see, it isn't about me. It's about what they want and what's the problem that they have created. It isn't
Right.
like something's, uh, they're not a victim. They created the problem. And so my job is to help them focus, see the difficulty, see what's important, let the problem go, and take action towards what you say is valuable.
How do you measure success in your work, and what kind of outcome do you typically see with your clients?
Well, I measure my success by the outcome. The outcome is usually what it is they want.
Mhm.
So if they come to me to stop smoking, they stop. If they come to me to stop vaping, they stop. So that's a success, right?
The outcome.
Uh, yeah, the outcome is it. And the proof is in the pudding, and they're the pudding,
Mhm.
right? The
Right,
proof has to be here,
right,
right? For us to say, okay, it did it, it worked,
mhm,
right? It has to show up in the client.
right.
Mhm.
Personal growth can be a complex journey. How do you guide your clients in setting realistic goal for their personal development?
That's a real good question. I am totally a different kind of counselor, right?
Mhm,
And so what I do is I help the client discover the real question that they have in the present moment.
mhm,
You see, Richie Dunn, almost everybody puts their goal in the future, right? That's where they put it. And it's very hard to achieve it when it isn't now. So I help them bring the goal from the future here into the present. And then they can accomplish the goal in the present moment, right?
right,
That's really how, and because of that, they begin to grow professionally, emotionally. They grow in ways exponentially. It rings like when they come to me, it's like ringing 6 or 7 church bells, right? They have epiphanies that happen in their mind, and they awarenesses come. That's the other thing that happens, right? Is epiphanies, awareness, and their brain turns on. So they're quite connected to me because I share the space with them. We're one person. We're not two people. I become one with them and we're one person. I share that reality. The other thing that I do that I think is really important is I am beside the person instead of across from the person
mhm,
so that we're both looking at the problem. I'm not looking at the person like they are the problem.
mhm.
We're both looking, oh, wow, look at this problem. Oh, right.
Right, right.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, so when clients have doubt or skeptical about the possibility of rapid change, how do you address this concern and help them trust the process?
Well, they, first of all, right away, they trust me, right? They have no difficulty in trusting me. And so I ask them, would you like a gentle change of mind? Would that be okay with you? And I ask permission to make a change of mind, right?
Right.
Or a change of heart, or a change of perception,
Mhm.
right? To move from being at the effect of the problem to being able to witness the problem.
Right.
And I've never had any difficulty. They say yes, they want it. And so I help them with what I call it's a PFC. I call it a PFC. right
PFC.
behind your right behind your forehead
Mhm.
is your prefrontal cortex.
Right.
Right. And so I asked them, would it be okay if we change that? And they say, well, okay. Right. So if a person comes in, let's say, who smokes cigarettes
Mhm.
and wants to stop. So I ask them to write down 5 statements of what it is they believe that is true about them and smoking, but what they wish they didn't do.
Mhm.
Right. And so they'll say, like, I like smoking. I smoke all day.
Mhm.
I've smoked for 12 years. I like the smell of smoking. I'm just using smoking. Um, and smoking helps me relax,
Mhm.
right? So then that's what they believe is true. They believe that. It isn't make believe. They believe this is really true.
Right.
And so I help them discover that it's not true. And when their mind discovers that it's not true, what comes out their mouth, like the last young man, I think he was 25, he came in and he told me how much he loved smoking and vaping. And 20 minutes later, Richie Don, he said to me, "That's disgusting. Smoking is disgusting."
Mm.
He never smoked again.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we make a change of the prefrontal cortex. It's very gentle. It's sort of a gentle awakening,
Mhm.
nothing radical, um, you know, nothing shocking, just
Mhm.
gentle awakening,
Right.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So go ahead.
Um, what rules does self-compassion play in personal growth, and how do you help your clients cultivate that?
Yeah. So self-compassion, of course, I showed you with the bear, what I call bear repair.
Right.
Right? That's a way of being self-compassionate.
Mhm.
Um, I teach people that this is an animal, like a giraffe
Mhm.
or a zebra, and or a cat or a dog, and they like to be petted, right? So I teach people, oh, give yourself a little pet. It's okay to be kind to yourself and to remember that this is common to all humanity. Everybody suffers, right? And with I help them develop the desire to alleviate the suffering, to heal the suffering, right? The suffering usually, I'm sure you know, is in the subconscious part of the mind,
Right.
right? That's where it is. So if we can empty the subconscious, then they're back at their original source, which is loving and kind and caring. That's how we're born. We're born into with we bring with us love and kindness.
Right.
That's our original nature, and then it gets covered up by anger and guilt and shame and fear. It's down here, and all the other stuff is covering it. So I get rid of that, and all you have is their natural nature, right?
Right. Right.
And they become conscious of it, of their natural kindness, their natural compassion. And I really explain how I teach them exercises on how to practice self compassion and compassion for others,
Mhm.
to actually know that whoever is in front of you is struggling. And
Right.
it could be your mother, your father, your brother, anybody. And so you want to be curious, how can I alleviate the suffering? How can I help them let it go? And that's an action that you take,
Mhm.
right? Uh, Being aware is a witness. You're a witness to their suffering, but the action comes from the compassion.
Right.
How can I help? When you're in the witness position, you're actually empathetic. You're feeling what they're feeling. So you're kind of getting to know their emotional uh, territory.
Mhm.
And so you know what that is when you're in the room with them, right?
Mhm.
And then you teach them what that is and how to actually bring forth healing to their own problem.
Mhm.
Yeah. With
Yeah.
compassion. Yeah.
Right. Right. What are some common challenges that individuals face when they start their journey towards managing stress and anxiety? And how do you help them overcome these obstacles?
Well, first of all, excuse me, first of all, most people have no idea that they're creating the problem. They think the problem is coming from out here somewhere and someone else is to blame for the problem. But they're actually doing it by telling themselves a story, right? Of, for instance, a friend of mine got walked for 5 miles every day, and one day he got bit by a dog, and this maybe a week or so later got bit by another dog. So then he stopped going outside to go on a walk because his mind said, oh, I better not go outside. There's probably a dog out there. The dog's going to bite me. So he stopped doing what was good for him based on a fear and based on the story in his head. So I asked him, if you had no story, what would your life be like? He said, oh, well, I'd be out walking. Okay, he walks now. He's outside.
It's more in our mind only.
Yeah, well, where else could it be?
You mentioned that you can help people stop smoking, vaping, and dipping into like about 20 minutes and release post-traumatic stress disorder in a few minutes.
Mhm.
Could you elaborate in the specific techniques or modalities you use to achieve this rapid result?
Well, again, like I said, I use the prefrontal cortex. I make a change there, right? The prefrontal cortex, that part of our brain, is survival of the body.
Mhm.
And it has some ideas in there that are not healthy, but the idea is there. Like, I like smoking, I like vaping, or um, on post-traumatic stress,
Mhm.
right? They keep remembering the story, right? So we look at the story. How many times do you want to remember it? Did you remember it completely? I want to make sure that you've got the whole story, right?
Mhm.
And so they might say things like, well, I'm no good, I'm unworthy. They
Mhm.
might start crying. And so then I challenge the belief of I like smoking. I challenge that. And when you challenge it, the prefrontal cortex goes, what? And it changes itself. And that takes about 20 minutes
Mhm.
and it's over. It's just over. I don't know. Um, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. That's going to be in the book that we're writing at this point in time.
Right. Your books
So
are available in Amazon. Just a
it
different
is.
segue. Your books are available in Amazon.
Well, we haven't quite decided if we want to go for a publisher yet, or if we want to do an ebook,
Ah,
right? I want to put it out there as quickly as possible.
I would
And
I would
go ahead.
suggest to have it like also to have it as an ebook because we are now in digital age.
Right, 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 right.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, so going back, what sets your approach apart from traditional therapy or counseling methods? And what unique benefits do clients gain from working with you?
well, basically what I do is I help them transcend their self-transcendence, to get beyond it. And sometimes I'll use Maslow's theory of the pyramid that he drew, or they drew anyway. Sometimes I'll use that to help them understand, to transcend the story in their head, to rise above it,
Mhm.
to rise above who they think they are. I explain that you're not who you think you are. You do exist, but
Mhm.
you're not the story in your head,
Right,
right?
right.
I teach them about their private eye. So they will tell me, I like smoking. And
Mhm.
I say, who's that I? What I is talking to me? Right. And because their private eye does not talk about what your private eye talks about.
Mhm.
Your private eye talks about, oh, I got to do a video. I want to start a show. I hear your eye, right? So I introduce them to the private eye that's creating the problem.
Mhm.
And then we learn to be friends with the private eye and change its goal. So instead of it saying, I like smoking, it goes, oh, smoking is terrible.
Right, right.
So there's a transformation that happens when we transcend the self, right? Self-transcendence, right? When we do that, everything changes. It's like, here's an example, here's a metaphor. If you went to drop a rock in a pond, it would create ripples,
Right,
right?
right.
But on the way down to the bottom of the pond, when it hits the pond, the bottom, the
Mhm.
dirt is going to go up
Right.
and it's going to settle back down, but it's not going to be the way it was. And that's the same thing with what I do. I throw a rock in their pond. It goes down, it hits, and all the beliefs come up
Mhm.
and resettle down, but never the same way again.
Right. I got you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Mhm.
Can you share a specific example of a client who benefited significantly from your approach and what their journey looked like?
Well, yes. My client came in, a man about 42 years old, uh, and he wouldn't even sit on the chair. He sat on the floor.
Mhm.
And he said, I'm not worthy to sit on the chair. So I sat on the floor. And we sat on the floor together.
Mhm.
And he told me how he was nothing, that he was a piece of dirt,
Mhm.
that no one would listen to him or respect him. No one loved him. And he didn't feel like he belonged. And all the time he's crying,
Mhm.
just weeping. And I didn't interrupt his story. I didn't try to change him. I just said, that's very difficult.
Mhm.
Those are very difficult experiences. And he took a breath. He took a breath and he said, oh, thank you for listening to my story. Nobody will listen. And I said, well, I listen. And it's a very difficult story, but we do have hope because you're with me now. And when you're with me, I can help you. And he smiled, right? So he left. He said, I'll be back next week. I said, okay. He came back next week. He sat this time on the couch. He didn't sit on the floor. So I knew change happened, right?
Right,
I
right.
knew. And so then we began to do the gentle awakening, right? And activate the prefrontal cortex and
Mhm.
create some epiphanies. And again, as each idea came out of the subconscious, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'll never make it, he would cry and cry, of course, because these are hurtful thoughts, right? They're very hurtful beliefs. But he pulled them out and he cried and he cried. And so that lasted maybe 30 minutes of cleaning out the subconscious.
Mhm.
And he was getting ready to leave, and I noticed that his skin was different. I was like, wow, what am I seeing? Right?
It
He came
radiates.
he came back the third week and he was just a different person.
Oh,
His
that's
face
awesome.
was lifted, he was happy, uh, he was excited to be there. I think I've seen him 6 times now.
Mhm.
And uh only one time did he go back into the story, right?
Mhm.
And then we dissolved it. We just dissolved the story. And he said, now I can be me. And I
Right.
said, yes, you have the right to be you. Go ahead. And so that's an example of,
That's a
and I'm
great
still,
story.
yeah, I'm still seeing him. He's still coming to me. And that's because he just wants to.
Right,
Yeah.
right. How do you incorporate mindfulness and practice of living in present moments into your work with clients? And why do you think it's important?
Well, I think what I do ultimately is I bring them in the present moment, like I mentioned before, right?
Right.
I bring them into a state of curiosity to where they can experience epiphanies because the present moment is all you have. You only have this moment. So I bring them in there, right? And they find it very comfortable. Everybody's happy in the present moment, right?
Right.
Uh, so as we go into that, I call that, I'll give you what I call it. I call it vertical living. So horizontal living is where you live in the past or the future, past or future, past or future. Vertical living is here in the present moment, right? That's what I do. And as I bring them into the vertical living, then they learn to live there, and they learn to achieve and live their values from vertical living, from the present moment. And they'll look at me and they'll go like this to tell me I'm vertical. I got
Right.
it. Yeah. So I
Right.
do a lot with groups. I do 4 groups a week, and they're 2 hours each. And it's consistent. The clients come every week. So they learn bit by bit by bit as we go, right?
Right.
And that I think is very helpful, because you have, after a week or two, they begin to tell you of the things that are happening, synchronicities, epiphanies. They're like, wow, you can't believe it. This is what happened to me. And I go, yeah, I can believe it, right?
That's
Yeah.
great.
Hmm.
Right. So, how do you help someone who feels overwhelmed by the demand of their personal and professional life?
Well, we look at it. What is their professional life? What is their career?
Mhm.
Like right now, I have a young man that drives 2 hours to work in South Carolina and 2 hours back. And he says, oh, I can't. I have to do that. I have to earn money for my children, because he has 5 children. He's 24 years old, maybe 25 now. And so what I help him do, because he's overwhelmed with that whole thing, of course, is first of all, relax. Let's look at it. And we look at possibilities, the potential. What is the potential? Well, the potential is you could change jobs,
Mhm.
right? You could work here and be, 20 minutes from your children
Right.
instead of 2 hours. And that's something that, he didn't think about. He didn't think he could change jobs, because it pays good money, right? What he calls good money. And so in that case, for him to calm his overwhelm, I practiced, I think it's Navy SEAL breathing, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and then hold for 4. So it
Right. Mhm.
makes a square,
Mhm.
right? I do this myself. I practiced uh, the breathing technique this morning for probably 15 minutes before I got up.
Mhm.
And while I was breathing, doing the square breathing, I also brought into my mind what I wanted, which was peace. I wanted to feel peace of mind.
Mhm.
So I'm doing the breath work, and I'm bringing in what I want to have happen, not what I don't want,
Mhm.
but what I want, right?
Right.
So by the time the 15 minutes was up, I was very grounded in the present moment. I felt very at peace and at ease,
Uh-huh.
right? Enough to be able to handle the emergency phone call that I got from my neighbor who's 87 years old and crying, right? And I was anchored in the present moment. So I was able to handle it and help her very quickly come back to, everything's okay, right?
Right. Right.
That that kind of thing. So I teach people to do the breathing techniques. Mhm.
I actually do the same. I'm doing breathing technique, but for me, it's like 4 and 8. Hold the breath of 4. Yeah. Inhale of 4, exhale of 8.
Uh-huh.
Right. Like that.
Right. And with the square breathing, you're breathing in, then you're holding it. Then you're breathing out, and you're holding no air there, and then you breathe in. That's a
Right.
little different than the 4 and the 8. I
Right.
understand. It's just two different techniques. They both will work.
Right. But I'll try to learn about the square breathing as well.
Yeah.
There's often a stigma around seeking help for mental health issues. How do you encourage individual who take the first step, I mean, to take the first step and seek for support they need?
Well, I basically point to the fact that they're not happy. You're not happy. So you can't get to happy through unhappy. That's not the path. You have to become happy. And the way to become happy, of course, is to let go of unhappy, let it go,
Right.
and develop a support system. So who do you hang with, right? You want to hang with people that are supportive of you and you are supportive of them. That's your external world, right?
Right.
So we look in the community, where's the help? Where's the support in the community already, right? That they can get the support that they need. And then we look at the emotional support. What emotional support do they need? And that might be training in self-compassion, right? Loving kindness to themselves,
Right.
that kind of thing. We then look at the self-care of the body, right? Do you care for your body? Do you brush its teeth? Do you help it stay healthy? Do you feed it good food? What does the body need? And are you supplying that, right? So we look at it at that, right? And then what are the memories that keep coming up? And do you need them? So for example, a man came to me the other day, he's 80 years old. His face is bruised, right? He comes to me and he says he had an argument with his niece or his daughter or somebody like that. Anyway, I started with, well, what was it like when you were 5? Right. And I'm just going to see if I can show you. Let me pull the camera this way. I said, what was it like when you were 5? And he went, and I went, oh, what is that? Right. And that happened to be the memory of when his mother punished him
Uh-huh.
severely when he was 5 years old. And he's 80 now.
Still
And
there.
he has held on to that memory because you see, when he was 5 and she was hitting him, he froze. And the memory froze. And it keeps coming up for healing, and he pushes it back down.
Mhm.
So in that session, I said, isn't that kind of boring? Wouldn't you like to, you've held the memory for 75 years now. Do you want to hold it a little longer? We could hold it, look at it. How long do you want to hold it? Right. And he
Right.
said, well, I don't want to hold it. I said, well, then. And he took a like that. And I knew as soon as he took a breath that he let it go. Right. So
Right.
that's some of the things that to be able to, stay keenly aware of the client in front of you. Are
Mhm.
they rapidly breathing, right? Are their eyes dilated? Are they blinking? Do they do this? What do they do, right? Stay aware of their nonverbal communication.
Right.
For me, that's really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah. So for someone who may be hesitant or uncertain about seeking professional mental health care or guidance, what advice or message would you offer to help them take the first step?
Oh, yeah. Well, usually what I do is I find out who their family is, right? Tell me your family of origin. Do you have children? Are you married? Who's your family, right? And how do they feel when they're around you? And what are your children learning from you? Are they learning anxiety? Are they learning how to be depressed? Uh, is your wife afraid of you? Does she feel nervous around you? Or the husband could feel that way, right? So
Right.
we kind of get a general understanding of the physical environment and what does he want it to look like? He or she, doesn't matter. What do they want it to look like? And then I suggest that we actually go ahead and give just a few minutes to show that you can have that it's possible.
Mhm.
And once they realize that it's possible to have good relationships, loving relationships with themselves, first here, and that they can have it with others, then I suggest, well, would you like to come for another session? Would you like to come back?
Mhm.
Or sometimes I will refer them to a psychologist or a doctor.
Mhm.
And by that time, they want to get help, right? They want
Right.
that help of a psychologist or a doctor to help them feel better, right?
Right. Right. How do you work with the client who may be resistant to change or hesitant to open up about their struggles?
Hmm. Well, first I look to see where's the resistance. What are they resisting and why? So a lot of people, Richie Don, they resist happiness. They're afraid of happiness. A lot of people uh, are addicted to chaos, anger and guilt and judgment and remorse, and they rationalize and they justify. And there is a resistance because that's very familiar. So, and happiness is not familiar. So they resist happiness because that's familiar, right? So what I have to do for in my own situation is I give them a glimpse of what it's like to be happy,
Mhm.
right? And they just get a little taste of it, just a little taste of, let's see if we can savor the moment, right? And
Right.
sometimes, depending, sometimes I'll ask them if I'm doing it online like this, I'll ask them to get something that they really love, right? Something. Now I'll give you an example. My last client, he came in with an ice cream on a stick, right? So I said, okay, and eat that ice cream and savor every moment. Just, mmm. And he did. And I said, now savor your mouth, savor that. And so I got him to savor the whole moment, including the chair, everything, to savor being alive, right? That's a little taste of happiness, right? And usually the resistance sort of goes away. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
In what ways do you see technology impacting the field of mental health and personal growth?
Well, I think AI, artificial intelligence, is a real boon at this point in time
Right.
because it could be very helpful. Of course, it's not a sentient being, it doesn't have consciousness.
Mhm.
So you can use the artificial intelligence, the technology that we have to help you in your career to learn things that well, even for instance, I think the other day I was giving a group and I said I wanted to teach on binge drinking. So I just went to artificial intelligence and said, give me all the information about binge drinking and put it in a discussion so I could do it. And it did it in 2 minutes, right?
Right.
So I didn't have to think about it. I had it right there for me, right?
Right. Right.
Do I know about binge drinking? Yes. I've been an alcohol and drug addiction counselor for 40 years. I know all that. But this just boom, right?
Right.
So artificial intelligence and technology have their place and they can be very, very helpful.
Mm.
And in saying that, I want to mention that's what's more helpful to us, of course, is curiosity, because curiosity can bring epiphanies, and epiphanies change the way the brain fires and wires together. It changes the brain. And along with that, I bring in the understanding of universal intelligence. Universal intelligence is different than artificial intelligence, right? I
Right.
also teach that in what's in your head is artificial intelligence. It was given to you by your parents, by your teachers, by your society. It isn't universal intelligence. It isn't truth,
Mhm.
right? So I believe in technology. I'm using it right now, right?
Right.
That kind of thing, and be very, very helpful. Um, yeah, and add to that universal intelligence
Mm.
and learn how to tap into the universe for universal intelligence, for truth to come to you. That's much better than AI.
AI. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as we wrap up this discussion, how do you continue to grow and develop as a counselor? And what steps do you take to stay relevant in this field?
Well, of course, I study with some of the best teachers in the world.
Right.
Uh, I'm constantly doing that. Right now, I think I'm studying with Dean Graciosi and Tony Robbins. So I'm right back at square one where I was 40 years ago looking at Tony Robbins. And so I do that, but mainly the way I do it is I practice what I teach.
Right.
That's what I do. I practice it. I like to have epiphanies myself. I like to create epiphanies. I love, like the other night, I stayed in curiosity for from 9:48 p.m. until 11. Now, curiosity is a very vast open space.
Mhm.
And to sit there in that space for that long of a time, and I offered different questions to the universal intelligence through curiosity, and I received downloads of information in that hour and a half or 2 hours that I practiced it. So I practice what I teach. I have little things like this, these little beads, right?
Uh-huh.
And I use them to help me stay at peace, be at peace, right?
Right.
I I constantly tell my mind to be still, quiet down all my thoughts. I don't have need of them, and I just say peace to my mind. Let all my thoughts be still. I'm fine. I'm here. I can run the show,
Right. Right.
right? So I have a voice of authority. And when I use that voice of authority, my brain goes, woo, and it starts to listen to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to aspiring counselors or coaches who are just starting their journey in this field?
I would say get the money you need to study with the best teachers on the planet. And if you don't have the money to do it, go on YouTube and study with all the teachers that are the best teachers on the planet,
Mm.
right? And that could be Chris Germer, Steve Gilligan, Kristen Neff, in the field you want, obviously. If you're in the field of psychology, find the best teachers. If you can't go to them particularly for workshops and training, then
Right.
go online, right? If you need to go to a college, well, what college do you go for? And, do you have the money to do that? Otherwise, find a way to create a business that will bring in some extra money so that you could do what you want to do while you're treading water in the job you're in,
Right.
right? But moving and really moving towards what's important to you. What are your values? Valued living is everything. Living your values in the present moment, vertical living, that's everything.
Right. Now, could you tell us about any upcoming events, workshops, or programs you are offering that our viewers might be interested in?
Well, I don't know how to explain it, but I did a podcast with Jan Debye in Poland. And I imagine you'd have to just put in my name or Catherine Rossi, her name, because she was in the podcast also. So I just did that. I just finished a presentation on curiosity and addiction. That was a presentation that I just did to a bunch of therapists, right? People working with people with the problem. And I'm due to do another presentation coming in February and one in May. And then, of course, I'm working on the book. I have a website, and that's probably the easiest way to get to me. Let me say this, RICHIEDON, I do it all myself. So when you go to the website, you can tell that I did it myself, right? I
Right.
didn't hire somebody to do it. I did it. And it's curiosityrocks.net. That's
Okay.
the type, right? That's the, and if you, type in my name, Linda Hamilton,
Mhm.
Asheville, North Carolina, information will come up. Yeah.
Yes, actually, that's the last question I have here. How our viewers can get in touch with you if they wanted to learn more or schedule a session with you.
Yeah. Well, again, it would be through my website, curiosityrocks.net, right? That's the website. And my email is linda@curiosityrocks.net, right?
Okay.
And again, through the internet, recognizing that I live here in Asheville, North Carolina, they could look me up on Messenger, Facebook. I'm on social media, Instagram. It's
Right.
usually under Linda Lou.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much. That's the
Oh,
end of our discussion. My dear viewers, as we conclude our interview with Linda Hamilton, it's clear that her journey and work reminds us the incredible power of living in the present moment. Linda's approach to helping others overcome addiction through mindfulness, self compassion, and acceptance based therapy teaches us that the true healing starts accepting ourselves, letting go of the past, and focusing on today. Her story also shows us the importance of creating safe, non judgmental space for growth, whether we are struggling ourselves or we supporting someone else. Linda's message is simple but profound. By being present and kind to ourselves, we can find peace, healing, and the strength to move forward. If there is one moral lesson we can take away, it's that we all have the ability to overcome toughest challenges in our life when we live in the present moment, free from guilt, shame, or fear. Thank you so much, my dear viewers, for watching. And remember to stay connected with me for more inspiring interviews like this one. Let's continue to build a supportive community where we can grow all together. Stay motivated, and I'll see you on the next episode. And by the way, if you would like to connect with Linda, you can send her a direct message via email or follow her Instagram account. The email and her Instagram link is in the description below this video. Thank you so much once again. My name is RICHIEDON Barandino, saying that life is a journey, but always remember that you are not alone. And if you have found value in this channel and my content, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow my social media account on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you so much. God bless us all.